Hi Miss, I'm Vivashini here.
Hi, hello, my name is Nur Shafika binti Muhammad Suhaidi and my metric number is B2136107.
Assalamualaikum. My name is Emilia Natasha binti Noh. Matric number B213611114.
Elections are the process of electing elected representative to rule either at the state or federal level. This election is done by the people with difficulty using sincere and orderly procedures. For the counting of votes, it is done openly and results obtained will be recorded. After the counting of votes, the candidate with the most votes will be counted as winner. This system is known as a simple majority system. Elections are an important feature of a parliamentary democracy in Malaysia. Elections in Malaysia are conducted by the Election Commission (EC). Its membership was appointed by the Yang di-Pertuan Agong after consultation with the Malay rulers. Elections are set up to ensure fair and free elections without pressure from the ruling for opposition parties. The three main functions of EC are to determine the boundaries of constituency, conduct voter registrations, and conduct elections, whether general elections or by-elections. Elections are held to elect members of the Dewan Rakyat and members of the State Legislative Assembly stimulously throughout Peninsular Malaysia. The discussion on this election was done to identify the system of government practiced in Malaysia and to know the element of democracy practiced in Malaysia. It is also discussed for the purpose of identifying the system of a separation of powers practiced and to identify the concept of division of power between governments of central and state. So there are only two types of election in Malaysia. First is federal level, second is state level. Procedures and requirements. During the election process, there are several laws and regulations that have been enacted to ensure that the election process can be carried out. Among the processes and laws carried out are Federal Constitution, State Constitution, Election Act 1958, Act 19, Election Offences Act 1954, Act 5, Election Travel Regulations 1981, Elections Registrations of Voters Regulations 2002, Election Postal Voting Regulations 2003.
Okay, let's move to the next point, which is candidate and voters. Candidates. Okay, candidates have four factors, which are: the first point is general facts of candidates. They need to win and be nominated in a parliamentary division election to become a member of Dewan Rakyat or known as the parliament. The second one, election of Dewan Rakyat. They must be Malaysian citizen and resident in federation and also must be not less 21 years old. The third one is state legislative assembly election. Malaysian citizen and resident in the state must be where he wishes to contest. And lastly is about disqualification as a candidate. They will be terminated if they are founded as a bankruptcy, hold an earning position, fail to submit a statement of election expenses, who has been convicted of an offence by a court in the federation and to have obtained citizenship of a foreign country. Also, if they fail to pay deposit parliamentary election and state assembly election. Next, voters. Voters can be anyone, either ordinary voters, police, military, media, postal voters, and abroad. For abroad, there are two categories, which are voters not present abroad, where they do not need a trip for postal voting, and Malaysian citizens living abroad who have registered to vote, where they need to apply to vote by post. Next, the important elements of elections. A candidate is elected to represent a division in an election in a parliament, which are general election or the state legislative assembly, where state election. To date, There are 219 seats in the Dewan Rakyat, or we call it Parliament, and 567 seats in the State Legislative Assembly. The Election Commission must conduct the study every not less than 8 years. Legal provisions. All political parties and election candidates are advised to understand election offences, especially those related to corrupt election campaign activities and abuse of power, as stipulated in the Election Offences Act 1954 and the Malaysian Anti-Corruption Commission Act 2009, or we call it MACC Act 2009. The necessary provisions already exist in the existing law to enable the MACC, PDR and the Election Commission, or we call it EC, to take stern action against corrupt practices and abuse of power ahead of the elections. Even under the provisions of the Election Offences Act 1954, it contains all forms of corruption offences and clear abuse of power, namely Section 8, bequeathing, 9. Undue influence, 10. Corruption during or after the elections period. There are some do's and don'ts during the polling day. The first one, every voter who corruptly accepts any such food or drink or refreshment provision or any such money or ticket or any other such means shall be guilty of the offence of cheating. The second one, breaking in or taking out ballot paper to or from polling station. So, before you leave the polling station, be sure to check if you have any excess pieces of paper in hand or attached to yourself. If you found any such excess papers, return to them immediately to the election officer before leaving the polling station. The third one, as soon as you are done voting, leave the polling station. But if you really have to wait for someone else, or maybe like your parents or siblings who are also voting, wait beyond 50 meters from the polling station. The fourth one, do not wear clothing on which of the name candidate's name, emblem, or symbol of any political party is printed. Plain clothing with minimal or no print is safer choice. And last but not least, the failure of employers to allow employees sufficient time to cast their votes on polling day is an offence under Section 25 of EOA.
Cases law. This is a system in which the seminal or primary source is the authoritative decision by judge in cases that are litigated before the court. Court proceeding follow the adversarial system or justice. The decisions are perpetuated by a system of binding judicial precedent or state decision. Alongside judicial precedent statuted passed by the legislature, the relationship between court and legislature is complex. Court interrupt stated often very creatively, and to understand the law, one must supplement legislation with case study. Our opinion. Your perception of politics nowadays are very important. Your awareness of politics is increased, and they can give their views during general election. Your voting is guaranteed if they believe that all current political parties are capable of meeting its expectation and can provide a bright future for us. Scholarship opinion. Kite and Holt baca The History of Political Communication and Advertising. Political advertising is a field that is still young. As such, it is difficult to say when political communication and advertising actually started in Malaysia. Not least, the youth of placard, poster, banner, flyer, radio, television advertisement, and can be tracked back since the election campaign in 1960s. It is therefore quite appropriate for researchers interested in political communication and advertising in Malaysia to embark for future research in this field. During the time, media vehicles were used as the main political communication tool to convey and disseminate political information to the eligible Malaysian voters. Conclusion: the practice of parliamentary democracy has indeed brought many benefits to the people of this country. Since its introduction until now, the system has been able to create a stable, peaceful, and propitious political environment. Through parliamentary democracy, the existence of a constitutional monarch has maintained the continuity of the tradition of governing the country. On the other hand, the government elected by the people must be wise to win the heart of the people and must not act based against the monetary, because this situation will bring down the ruling government in the future. In addition, each individual will also be protected by his position and can exercise their right to determine the helm a government of the country. Thank you.